Good morning. This is the BLAINESWORLD podcast that we found each week on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. You can also listen in on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And you get more information, listen to past shows at our website, www.blainesworld.net. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and I'm here in my Zoom studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. Each week, we focus on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce, I think, one of the most positive guys I know, and he is Dave Carr, owner of, let me get the pronunciation of that name, the company, Dave, the owner of
Carrpediem.
Carrpediem. And you can feel free to wave.
Spelled Carrpe.
Oh, great.
Because every now and then people say, well, I email you, but, oh, I forgot to put the extra R in. Carrpediem.
By the way, great name. And you can wave to all your friends who are watching this, Dave. So if they're watching, this is Dave Carr, and you're operating out of where, Dave, where you live now?
We're over in East Asheville in Hawk Creek.
Okay. And I should mention that Dave, in terms of his background, his purpose in life is to help individuals and groups learn, live, and model seize the day. I always remember that, the very first time I met you. Just love that concept. He's trainer, facilitator, and educator, and networking coach with leadership development. He's retired from the city of Asheville. His partner to Terry, father to his children, Aaron, Brett, and Xander, and Lily. He holds himself accountable for the core values of compassion, social justice, and humility. Good stuff, Dave. And let's go back in terms of how we met first. I guess we met, 15 years ago, it must have been, in Leadership Asheville. And how did you get involved in that organization?
Well, back in Ohio, I was the venture out director for Camp Joy, which was a experience-based learning and did corporate development, team building. But one of our big clients, or several of our big clients, were Leadership Cincinnati, Leadership Warren County, several other leadership groups. I actually went through Leadership Dayton back in 1986. So, and it was a great program to go through. And then all the different leadership programs that I helped facilitate their opening retreats. So when we moved to Asheville, I sought out, now they got Leadership Asheville. So I reached out and went through Leadership Asheville with you. And what, 40 some other people?
Yes, and it's amazing. I'm still in touch with some of them. It's pretty cool.
Yes.
That you develop a lot of friendship. So I think, unfortunately, Dave, they just went through the recruitment period, but a great organization for anybody to join if they want to find out about Asheville. And when you were in Leadership Asheville with me, were you new to the area at the time?
Yes, we had moved down here in 2009. We went through Leadership Asheville 2010, class 28.
Right, something like that, yeah. But it's amazing. So yeah, I came exactly at the same time. So we were both new to the area. And it ties into, again, I'll give you a compliment here. One of the blog entries you wrote, and you write a lot of great blog entries, but you wrote one on networking not too long ago. And I think in terms of networking, you're as good as most people I know at networking. What do you see in terms of what do you see about networking, the way it should work in terms of if somebody's new to the area? Why should they get involved in networking?
Well, number one, I think networking is a form of connection. It's a form of creating community and getting to know people. But the other thing I think is important when you network is it's not about me, it's about you. And so, what I love to do when I go to networking events is if I were to meet you, I would say, hey, what are you expecting tonight? Who do you want to meet? Because I might be a resource for you. But it's more or less about being interested versus trying to be interesting. And I think that's the secret to networking.
I have to remember that's a great line too. Just distinction. I think also the idea being too, you don't have to meet, and I want you to adjust this a little bit. Everybody in a meeting. If you go to a networking thing, and I think Leadership Asheville was a good example. So remember, I remember this well. They would break us into small groups, so we weren't trying to meet 50, 45 people at a time, but just a smaller group. And I guess that's something when you're networking you should do.
Absolutely. A couple other things too is if you're networking and like they're having drinks, make sure you hold your drink in your left hand so you have your right hand free. Make sure you have your name tag here so people can see it
By the way,
because people don't want to shake hands with a wet, cold hand.
and I'll give you a compliment. As you said, I think you must have been the one who taught me that, because I always remember what you put in the name tag, what on your what
On your left.
on your left.
So when you, or I'm on your right. So when you use your right hand to shake,
Right.
it makes a direct contact from that standpoint.
I mean, you think about it, it's almost contrary to what you would think you would do. You know, everybody, me too, just automatically steps on their right side. But what a cool piece of advice, you know, and you wouldn't think about it ordinarily. How about the idea of business cards aren't what they were years ago. I don't know about even me. I used to give out business cards left and right. I don't seem to give out as many as I used to. Do you see that happening?
I still carry a business card. I still hand them out. In fact, I handed out a couple yesterday. We went to a local community 4th of July celebration and met a couple people. And I know we were talking about our Final Friday. Once a month, we do a Final Friday where we invite all the neighbors to come over. And I said, hey, here's my business card. My email's on there. Shoot me your email and I'll add you to my list. You know, so I still believe this is like a little mini billboard that is still worth handing out.
And I love it. And the point is too, David, it gives a great opportunity to also ask about the other person. You know, so you give one, hey, David, could I have your business card? Or, you know, and then like you said, if they don't have one, I like what you said, shoot me an email or get it to me otherwise. I never also, the other thing being popular, but I never got into it, was the idea of the codes. You know, you could put your code on the phone.
Yep.
I don't do that. Do you do that at all?
I used to, you know, like a QR code.
Right.
No, I don't do it anymore. I do use the back side though. So, you know, the front side's got my information, but then the back side has also got, if you want to seize the day, then you got to learn how to steal, swear, gamble, drink, and lie. So people look at that like, what? I'm already doing that. Maybe I can help you refine it.
And by the way, if people are listening, I hope they caught that what a great use of real estate that you use on both sides of the card, because otherwise you're wasting it. You know, you have all that real estate space. Ties into another one of my favorite Dave Carr blogs, and obviously I'm mentioning them right now, but you had one of the great ones, and I have to ask you to kind of give the Reader's Digest version of the idea when you meet somebody, and talk about this, Dave, because it was just brilliant what you said. When you meet somebody, let me see how you describe it here. The question is, you know, what was the question? Let me stop being a coach. You wrote a column about the first thing you should ask somebody, or how are you doing? Talk about that. It's just so brilliant. When you meet somebody, that everybody asks that question, right? How are you doing? Or what's up, Dave? What's your take on that?
I try to avoid it because number one, it's overused. I mean, this kind of gets back down to trust. And if you really say, you know, my favorite question is, are you trustworthy and what's your evidence? So if you're really trustworthy, then it involves four things, according to Charles Feltman. It involves sincerity. So I ask you how you're doing. Do I really look you in the eye and say, no, really, how are you doing? It's about reliability. In other words, if I make a promise to you, do I follow through on it? It's about competence. I mean, there's some things I'm really good at. There's a whole lot of things I'm not good at it that I need help. And then the last thing is compassion. You know, you and I as fellow human beings, we don't get out of this life alive. And in the meantime, we have highs and lows and we experience pain. So do I have compassion for your pain in there? So I think it's really important that when you meet someone, you look at it from the standpoint of how do I build trust with you by being sincere, reliable, competence, explore that, and compassion, you know? What's keeping you up at night?
Well, help me, Dave, then what's a better thing to say to somebody? We meet at a cocktail party, we meet at a neighborhood event. What's a better thing to say to somebody?
Well, I'll give you a great example. We just got done doing our final Friday at the end of June, and we have people fill out a name tag. And, you know, I like to be called and you put your name in there. And then right below it is, what was the best thing that happened to you in June?
Oh, I love
It's
it.
not, how are you? Oh, that's interesting. Well, we went to the beach for a week. Great. Tell me more. Did you get eat seafood? Did you go, I mean, so once again, people then are going back and reminiscing about something they had enjoyment about, and that's where you make connections.
Do you vary that question, or do you ask it all the time, the same question? Like you said,
No,
at your
vary it up.
meetings. Every meeting's a different question?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, one of the great people that I learned how to facilitate from was Peter Block. He wrote a book, I remember a retreat I was on. He said, the question is more important than the answer. And that really hit with me. And I realized that once again, back in my sales career, what I realized was the best salespeople were the best listeners. And they were the best listeners because they asked good questions and they listened to the answer and they followed up with another question. So they engaged. Same thing with facilitation. If I'm speaking more than 25% of the time, I'm not doing my job. I need to be asking you the question, why do you think that? Why do you believe that? So once again, it's the art of asking the question. It's being curious.
The same point, I forgot who said it, but it was also a sales trainer said the same kind of thing, that a great salesperson, you could see, you ask people, how much should the salesperson be talking? And the top salespeople in the world talk 10% of the time, and they get the customer to talk 90% of the time. But you can tell right away if you ever bought a car or anything else, and the salesperson just talks the whole time, they're not listening. Then I have to ask you, I don't know if people can see it, but another great question you asked. And by the way, most of your blog pieces seem to be questions or based on questions, but I hope people can see this. But this caught my attention right away. And and I have to ask you, by the way, I love the pictures, but Dave runs these entries and says, are you the person your dog thinks you are? Is that your dog or?
No, that's my cousin's dog. We were at a family reunion last September, and Chester, I believe, is that name of that dog, and he was looking at me like, "What's on your mind?" I got a great picture of him. So,
oh, that really is a great picture. I thought you just got it from somewhere. So that's actually, and you have to send it to your cousin, or we're talking about him, your cousin, and Chester the dog. How'd you come up with that idea? Are you the person your dog thinks you are? What was the basis of that?
Well, once again, it goes back to the first book I created, What's on Your Rear End, the bumper stickers. And there's a lot of bumper stickers here in Asheville around dogs. It's all about beer and dogs.
Right.
Or I'm not sure who rescued who. I think my dog rescued me. So, and I think another bumper sticker is, am I being the person my dog thinks I am? Because let's face it, you've got a cat. I know you don't have a dog, right?
No, right.
Yeah. So we've got a dog. And I mean, when we're gone, we come back. Dash, our dog, is excited to see us. And it's just like, all we do is just go away for a little while. But I mean, he's like truly happy. And it's like, am I being that way?
It's funny. And by the way, now you're talking about it, I do remember that book. It was right. It was just a collection of bumper stickers. And I remember it. I remember it very well. I think you must have written it before, right around Leadership Asheville, because you were talking about it then, or I remember seeing it in front of me.
Yeah, the first edition came out in 2017, and what I do is once a year, I still have a collection of probably over 800 bumper stickers, pictures. And so what I do is every August I go through and I look at the book and I'm like, okay, these are ones that I've taken pictures of this previous year. Any of those should be added? Are there any that should be subtracted? So,
by the way, do you keep them in a collection at home also?
I do.
You do? How many bumper stickers do you have?
Oh, goodness. Maybe 100, 150, something like that. Yeah. Not nearly what I have pictures of.
How about on your car?
I have two.
Okay.
I have two. I have the Carrpediem, if you want to seize the day, you got to learn how to steal, swear, gamble, drink, and lie. And then I have a BPR bumper sticker because I'm on the community advisory committee. So I support my local radio station.
Okay, I love it. It's just like each of them lends itself to almost like a great discussion. You're talking about you want to engage somebody, wouldn't this be a great question? Are you the person, your dog, or my case, my cat? But I don't have the same reaction. I love my cat dearly, but I don't have the same reaction from him, as you get from a dog, I
Sure.
know, Dave, I should ask you for advice. We're trying to train him, but all we want him to do is just, we call him, just want him to come to us or something, or look at us. I try to work with him on eye contact, like no eye contact. I can't get him to, that picture you have the dog. So if you have any ideas on that, let me know. But I'm looking for that.
Will do.
And Dave, talk about then. I'm mentioning them because, as you know, I like them so much. But you write these blogs. How often do you write them?
Usually as the spirit moves me, but I would say probably on an average about once a month. Sometimes I get out to a month. It just depends, what I'm thinking about.
Now, if somebody wants to find them, where do they find them?
They're on my website,
Which is
carpediem.com. And then when you go to that, on the title page, you'll see blogs. And there's probably, oh gosh, I don't know, they go back to several years.
because that's what I was doing just before the show. And like you said, I went through them and just, I said each of them are just kind of really cool. And you have the part of it, I think, that what makes them so cool, you choose great pictures to use with them, and they catch your attention, as to want to know more about it. And it's just, I'll just ask you one more. But again, the titles, how do you come up with the titles, by the way? It just come to you?
Yeah, usually the title is a question. And the idea is, to once again draw the reader in to say, well, that's an interesting question. And once again, I share my perspective. A lot of times I will end the blog with a question, what do you think? Or what have you experienced in that as well? Because, yeah, I've shared with you my opinion and my ideas. And do you want to share them with me?
And one of the favorite questions you have in there, and it's one of my favorite quotes also, is how old would you be if you didn't know how old you are? And I know who I give credit for. I don't give credit to you. But do you know who I have somebody I think said it originally? Do you know who said it originally?
No.
Look it up. It was Satchel Paige. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
And it was just such a great question. How old would you be if you, and again, I don't know if he said it initially, but how old would you be if you didn't know how old you are? How does Dave Carr answer that?
I'm happy where I'm at. I do not want to go back to my 30s. I think if I really wanted to say where would I go back to, I'd go back to when I was 47, because that's when I made a life change of leaving the corporate world and going into the nonprofit world, and that changed everything. So that was a watershed moment for me, and it really introduced me to a lot of new people. Probably changed a lot of my thinking. Definitely began my journey in understanding my white privilege, diversity. So yeah.
It reminds me of a quote some football coach said, and I love the idea behind it. He said, where's your favorite place to live? And he answered right where he is now, and this is a football coach, assistant coaches, they go through 20 job changes in, 25 years or something. It wasn't a great answer to just, like you said, how are you now? How old would you be if you didn't know how old you are? Are you happy where you are? And I guess that's something we should try to strive for, to kind of be happy where we are now.
I think so. I mean, the happiest people I know are, number one, they're extremely grateful and they live into their gratitude. I think the other thing is they're very hopeful and they share their hope with others and help people with who maybe are not as hopeful in that. So I think those are, a couple things that I try to lean into too.
One of the things I love about you, Dave, is in terms of you're always sharing ideas with other people, and you're I find you're a very giving guy. And it ties into something you were telling me off the air about another project you're involved in. I think it's so cool that, I guess, taking part of your background and what you've done all in your life, were you the one who formed this group you were telling me about, or about where you get together with people on Zoom?
Yeah, what happened was during the COVID, I was doing a lot of book discussions on Debbie Irving's book, Waking Up White. And then a lot of people started coming back to me and going, well, how do I have these hard conversations with my friends and family members who don't see it the way I see. And I said, well, it really is about using emotional intelligence. So I said, well, how about walking us through that? So I set up a series of discussions around emotional intelligence, which are 4 core things of self-awareness, self-management, empathy, and relationship management. And during one of those, we got to the last session, and one of the participants said, I don't want this to end. And he go, what do you mean you don't want it to end? And he goes, well, I have a suggestion. He said, how about if each one of us goes and finds someone who thinks the opposite or differently than we do, politically, religiously, whatever, and invite them to come together and have hard conversations around. So for the last 2 years, this group has been meeting once a month and having tough conversations. So this past June, the conversation was around woke. And we talked about what does that mean? Especially versus what do you think it means versus what does it really mean? And why is it worth having the conversations around woke in there?
How many people are in this group?
There are 12.
Okay. Is this group open to the public, or can other people join or
No,
find out about it?
this group is not open to the public. It is and in fact, the membership, we've got somebody who lives out in Colorado, a couple of people in Ohio, South Carolina, here in North Carolina as well. I will suggest you go look up Braver Angels. That is a group. In fact, I just noticed tonight on PBS, Judy Woodruff was meeting with a Cleveland group of Braver Angels, 6 people, 3 Democrats, 3 Republicans, who meet regularly to have difficult conversations and try to understand where each one of them is coming from and why it's important to have these difficult conversations instead of staying isolated.
Are they in Asheville?
Yes, there's a Western North Carolina contingent. Go Google Braver Angels though, and that's a group that you could get involved with in there. I also recommend you look at the local here in Asheville, Building Bridges.
Right. Yeah.
That's a great group to learn about what you don't know. The Racial Equity Institute meets regularly. They have discussion groups going on. Coming to the Table is another group that you could join that once again would get you into these, difficult conversations and having that.
And I guess also you're giving me an idea here too. You could even think about starting your own, in terms of, I guess the key is what I hear you saying is just not all the time go after the same people who look and think like you, to go out to reach other people. And that's hard, isn't it? Sometimes.
It is. And I think that's one of the challenges that we have is, in fact, one of my questions I like to ask in my leadership coaching is, what's the diversity network of the people that you're connected with? Because most people, their circle of influence and people they're closest to look like, sound like them. Am I willing to go out and diversify and have people that I don't normally talk to or don't normally see, especially see it the way that I see it, and have that in my circle in there?
And it's funny we're talking about it because I'll ask you another question having to deal with affirmative action. Because when you and I grew up, I remember when it hit, I don't know, 30, 40 years ago, wherever it hit, and it was such a radical concept at the time, but it seemed to make sense, in terms of diversifying who we hang with. Yet now we're going to have less of that, which I think in some respects is kind of a shame.
Yeah. Are you aware of the Reparations Commission?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, they're looking at the 5 areas of reparations, of which affirmative action's primarily been in education and in hiring. So once again, looking at how do we make sure that we have not equality but equity, and there's a difference between equity and equality.
It's just I thought affirmative action at least was a step toward that, and to change even as a teacher in terms of the students I would work with, or my colleagues. They weren't all looking like me, and so I thought it was a positive movement, but that's kind of gone, which we'll see how it plays out.
I agree.
And
I agree.
Just what I hear you saying is go for looking to meet people sometimes and hang with people that aren't just like you, or
Exactly.
Really cool. Talk about something else, Dave. You talk about it. I love some of your concepts are just great. the 15 minutes of fame. And so, you know, but it's a neat concept, is that, you know, do we all have 15 minutes of fame in ourselves? And your 15 minutes fame is what?
Actually, probably, as I was thinking about that, my Picha Kucha or Pachachka talks,
Right.
I did 2 of them. You did them too,
Yeah,
I
did
believe,
one,
didn't you?
right. Yeah.
Did one. Not 15 minutes, but the 2 of them together add up to 15 minutes.
Six
So
and a half minutes as well. But they were fun, weren't they?
they were very fun.
Yeah.
Most challenging talk I've ever had to work on and present, because it was, 20 slides, 20 pictures on the topic, 20 seconds to talk about each slide. And you practice, but then when you get there in front of the live audience, which I don't know what was 300,
Right.
350
Sometimes,
people,
yeah.
and of course they laugh, and it kind of throws you off, and it's learning. I That was the biggest challenge.
Interesting. And for the benefit of the folks who don't know, like someday I'll learn how to pronounce that as well, Pekachuka or something along those lines.
Yeah.
What is it?
Pichakucha, I believe,
Okay.
or Pechakucha. It was actually.
But what is the group? And they have a group in Nashville too.
They do. In fact, I was talking to Jay Hill recently, and they're trying to bring it back. It shut down during COVID,
right.
but for a while there, they were doing it once a month, and it was meeting at the Grove House,
right.
and the it was a paid venue. You paid to get in and see it, but usually there were 8 people that spoke, 4, and then intermission, and then another 4. But high energy, quick talks. It was basically a TED talk on speed.
And the thing about it, it was because I had never done it before. Believe it or not, I had never even done a PowerPoint presentation before, and it's kind of forced you, but it was a great experience, and a great, back to what you were saying earlier, a great way to meet people and network with people, and find out about people you don't know about, and things who are interested. But I have to admit, I'm a little disappointed with your answer to that question, Dave, though, because really you're laughing, but 15 minutes of fame, I thought you were going to say when you were on another podcast I had, a couple of years ago. I thought that I set you up, Dave, and you blew it. The most memorable.
My bad.
Okay, but
that was 30 minutes. So
okay, it was at time, and we'll now do maybe 40 minutes this time. But I'll give you a chance next time you're on the show. I'll give you a chance to redeem yourself. What do you see yourself doing moving forward? In other words, again, one of the things I've always admired about you is you're always doing something different. It seems, you don't do the same old. Moving forward.
I still have. I'm still doing executive coaching, leadership coaching. I've got 5 clients currently. I'm doing that. I still have 2 books to finish and get printed. Hope to do some more traveling. We went to Spain last fall, and we got plans to go to Germany and Amsterdam next spring. So we've got another grandchild coming, so we need to get up to see that person. So yeah.
And so you mentioned the executive coaching. So in terms of reading some of your books, reading your blog entries, speaking to you, going to things in the neighborhood, what is you were mentioning kind of your clients? How do you work with your clients? What do you do with them?
Most of them are by referral. I find that most of them tend to be in their 40s. They're kind of reached that point, like, am I doing what I should be doing? Maybe they're struggling to, especially with the COVID and all that brought on the quiet quitting stuff in there. They're really taking a hard look at their legacy, where they are and where they want to be. So once again, it's about the questions. It's about understanding their history and maybe the good habits as well as the bad habits that they've had from their past. It's where they are currently right now. What's going well versus what's not going well. It's talking about the future. I like to challenge them to think, okay, you're going to be on the front cover of Leadership Today. You're going to be, what's it going to say about you? What are you going to be known for? So in other words, live into that. And then another key conversation is around relationships. what relationships are going well? What relationships do you need to work on? What relationships do you need to develop? Because it's all about connection. So I didn't get where I'm at by myself. I mean, I owe my success, my significance to a lot of different people, including you being in Leadership Asheville. So, once again, it's how do I keep developing that? How do I keep, sharing the gifts, the talents with others and helping them with their gifts and talents?
And by the way, thank you for that question. I've never really quite thought of it in those terms, but what a great question. Think of yourself in terms of a magazine cover or whatever you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you want, I guess, it to be said about you, or what's the article
Mm-hmm.
going to look like, or what would other
Mm-hmm.
people say about you? And that's a powerful way to get thinking about what you're doing in life when you grow up,
Exactly.
I guess I'll ask you the final question then in terms of growing up. Do you do you see yourself ever growing up, or do you see yourself like one of the things? I took a different career path than you did, but you've never really retired. It seems like so you worked for the city of Asheville for all those years, and now it doesn't sound like you're very much retired. You're just doing a lot of other different kinds of things. Do you see yourself ever retiring?
I see myself slowing down. I mean, I already have. I mean, I was back in May. I was back in Ohio working with a group at Camp Joy, and the coordinator asked me if I wanted to go up and work one of the ropes courses that we had the client on. I'm
Right.
going, no, I'll stay on the ground. I'll watch.
Well, as you say it, and not to get political about it, but no offense to Biden or Trump, but I think about that. I could not see myself doing anything of that nature, 78 or 80. I want to be doing stuff, but I don't want to be leading a country, let alone, a company or organization. Yeah, I think I'd rather do other stuff, but can you imagine? I just think at certain point in time, it's nice to slow down or do other things, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, back to the way to reach you. If somebody wants to get in touch with you, best bet is what, Dave?
My website, which is carpediem.com, CARRPEDIEM.
And I would thank you because I always spell it wrong. Just before I was looking at I always remember it, but it's Carr spelled the right way. I love it. So that's best bet.
It's also one of my tattoos.
Is it really?
Oh yeah.
Oh my goodness.
In fact, it's funny. I've had people come up to me at the Y.
Yeah.
You got Carpe Diem spelled wrong. And I'm like, well, what if your last name's Carr?
I love it.
Oh, that's clever. And all that goes to my wife. She's the one who came up with it. So
brilliant. So I'm impressed. You didn't just put that on for me for the show today. You had that on.
Oh yeah.
How long?
Several years ago, my son, before he went in the Marines, said, I'm going to go get a tattoo. And I said, okay, I'll go with you. I'll get one too. So his took about 3 hours. This took maybe 20 minutes.
Yeah. I think I'll on all the great stuff you say and do. I think I'll pass on that one. I don't think I'll get a Blaine's World tattoo. Yet, by the way, we're laughing. I think a great column for you, or a great blog. Talk about that, or is that a tattoo for you, or just that story you just told? I think there's a story there. I'd love to hear it. How old were you when you got it?
Oh, wow. 62, maybe.
Okay. Am I saying, but very powerful story. Why does a 62-year-old guy get a tattoo, or whatever? And, there's a story behind it. And I think that I'd love to hear it sometimes, or I've just heard it, but I'd love to read it, and I can just see like you thrilled the audience who are watching this. They actually got you didn't have to show it to us. It's like the one tattoo I was going to, we actually did one time, but it was a fake tattoo. My wife put it on my bald spot on my head, and you may have seen a guy mowing the lawn, and so that would be my tattoo. But where anybody else, if they want to do I love it, Carr, but I have to spell it right, Carpediem, and people do notice it and they complain about spelling.
Oh yeah.
Okay, great. Dave, it's always a pleasure. Good speaking to you, and I look forward to maybe even seeing you sometime in person in the next couple of years.
Super. Look forward to it. Thank you,
buddy. Thank you. And I want to sign off, and I think we'll be able to wrap up afterwards.